Today, we're diving into a really big idea, a fundamental shift in how our entire civilization is put together. We're not just talking about a new piece of tech or a new policy, we're talking about a whole new operating system for humanity. Let's get into it. So, let's start with a question. What if that constant hustle for survival, the struggle for the very basics of life, wasn't some unavoidable law of nature? What if it was just an outdated program, an old piece of software that our world is still running on, even though it's becoming obsolete? That's really the core idea we're going to unpack today. To really get where we might be heading, we have to be super clear about where we are right now. We're living inside what the source material calls a day two system. And what does that mean? It means our world is built, from the ground up, on the logic of scarcity. Now here's the thing that's so interesting. Scarcity isn't just about a lack of stuff. It's the actual design principle baked into the very core of our civilization. It's what shaped our markets, our politics, our institutions, even the way we think. It basically taught all of us to compete because the underlying assumption was, hey, there isn't enough to go around.
Okay, so this lays out the contrast perfectly. Our current day two system, the scarcity OS, says your survival is tied to having a job, and the whole thing runs by extracting resources that eventually run out. The emerging day four system, this utility economy, completely flips that script. Survival is based on everyone having access to things that are regenerative, and markets, they get freed up to be about creativity and choice, not fighting over basic needs.
And here's the crucial part, something that can be a little tough to wrap your head around. Our core systems don't just respond to scarcity, they actually depend on it to function. Think about it. Industrial labor kind of relies on the threat of unemployment. Competitive markets were designed specifically to figure out who gets the limited goods. So when real abundance starts to show up, these systems don't just adjust, they start to break, because their entire reason for being is getting challenged.
So what's causing all this? What's making that old operating system start to crash? Well, it comes down to two incredibly powerful technological forces that are pushing us towards abundance. Let's take a look at what they are.
The first engine is this absolutely mind-blowing cost collapse in energy. I mean, just look at this chart. Solar and wind are now, officially, the cheapest forms of electricity in all of human history. We are shifting from a world of energy extraction, digging finite fuels out of the ground, to a world of energy harvesting, just pulling it from the infinite flows of the sun and wind. And because energy is the master resource that makes everything else possible, when it becomes abundant, it starts to make scarcity everywhere else look a little shaky.
The second engine is just as profound, intelligent automation. For pretty much all of history, if you wanted to produce something, you needed a human to do the work. But now, AI, robotics, and incredibly smart software are systematically taking human labor out of that production equation. This creates what the source calls the great decoupling. You see, in the old model, more productivity meant more jobs. Simple. But in this new model, productivity can absolutely skyrocket as machines do more and more of the work, while the number of jobs for humans might actually go down. That ancient, unbreakable link between having a job and being able to survive, it's starting to dissolve.
And this has a massive impact on us, on people, and it seems to happen in stages. First, you get disruption, right? Work just feels less secure. Then, you see this gradual decoupling, where society has to figure out new ways to get resources to people that don't involve a traditional paycheck. And finally, you get to this incredible reorientation, where human purpose itself can start to shift away from just earning a living.
So, if that old system is fading away, what's actually emerging to take its place? This brings us to the main event, what the source material calls the utility economy. This is the operating system for an age of abundance.
In the simplest terms, the utility economy is a system where the absolute basics of life, we're talking energy, food, water, housing, are treated the same way we treat tap water or sanitation today. They're seen as a universal utility that you are simply entitled to. Now, this isn't presented as a political ideology, it's framed as a structural necessity, the logical next step for a world where producing these essentials becomes incredibly cheap. And this isn't just some abstract theory. Look at the practical, real-world upgrades we're talking about. High-cost, centralized energy grids that are vulnerable to politics get replaced by universal access to almost free energy. And for housing, the old paradigm of market scarcity and crazy high costs gets replaced by the very real potential for low-cost, universal shelter for everyone. Let's just zoom in on housing for a minute, because it's such a persistent challenge for so many of us. The core idea here is that a shortage of housing isn't a law of physics. It's an engineered outcome of that day two system, a system that treats a basic human need, shelter, as a speculative asset instead of as critical infrastructure.
But there's a whole stack of technologies that are converging to basically dismantle that scarcity. Just imagine, robotic systems that automate construction right on the building site. Giant 3D printers that can create the walls of a house in a matter of days. Homes being built as high-quality modules in factories with incredible speed. And on top of all that, you have AI that can optimize the designs to use way less material, making housing cheaper, faster, and way more sustainable than we ever thought possible.
So all of this leads us to the final, and you could argue the most important part of this entire story. What is the human impact of moving beyond a system that's organized purely around survival?
This quote really just captures the whole thing perfectly. For all of recorded history, our civilizations have been organized around the fear of not having enough. Abundance gives us for the very first time a foundation to organize ourselves around possibility instead.
So the bottom line is this. When the system itself guarantees your survival, the whole purpose of your effort is free to evolve. It's no longer just about employment to pay the bills. It can become about contribution, about creativity, about caring for other people and for the planet. Automation doesn't make humans obsolete. It frees us up for all the important work that machines can't do.
And that, of course, leaves us with the ultimate question. If the struggle to survive is no longer the central organizing principle of your life or of our entire civilization, what do we choose to become? That's the challenge and the incredible opportunity of the utility economy.